Where is all the oil going? This is by Russell Clark of Capital Flows and Asset Markets, Substack, on Zero Hedge. The advent of shale oil production has transformed the U.S. oil market. As production of U.S. oil has increased, the net imports of oil into the U.S. has fallen from 10 million barrels a day to something like 3 million barrels a day. COVID crash in oil prices seems to have stabilized the U.S. market at current levels of production and imports. As the largest net importer, the oil until recently, China is larger now, and after OPEC shocks of the 1970s, the U.S. has kept a large inventory of oil. When we include natural gas and oil products, the U.S. is a net energy exporter, so there is probably less need for the U.S. to keep oil inventory on hand. And in 2022, we have seen a historic drop in U.S. oil inventory. The U.S. needed oil inventories to guard against OPEC suddenly cutting off supplies, as Russia has done with natural gas in Europe this year. Now that U.S. net imports of oil have dwindled, it's right that inventory should fall. When we look at U.S. inventory of oil as days of net imports, between 200 and 100 days was the norm. We are currently at 400, so inventories falling by half from here could make sense. Almost all of the recent fall in oil inventories has come from the government-controlled strategic petroleum reserves. Commercial inventories are still high relative to history, but I think that has more to do with increased production. Most commercial operators would hold inventory for processing and their operations. It seems to me very likely that a commercial business would take the risk of holding oil for speculative purposes. That's why governments are forced to hold strategic reserves. Most of the fall in the SPR has happened this year. On January 1st this year, there was 593 million barrels in SPR, Strategic Reserve. The most recent data point is 423 million barrels or a fall of 170 million barrels, or 600,000 barrels every day. So where does this extra oil go to? The oil released from reserves go to U.S. refineries to turn into oil products, and if we add up oil supply, production plus imports less exports, and compare the refinery output, and then smooth over a 3-month period, we can see how the run down in oil reserves has allowed U.S. refinery output to be much greater than supply. So running down the SPR should be allowing the refiners to produce more gasoline and distillate, and hence rebuild the inventories of these products. The only problem is that neither gasoline or distillate inventory are showing any build. My initial reaction to the collapse in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve was that it was a sensible reaction to the disruption of the oil industry, the supply due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I then thought it was a political play by the Biden administration to get oil prices down before midterms in November. Now I think it's a reaction to reduced oil supply by U.S. producers. The SPR is being drawn down, but end consumers are using up the refined oil stocks. The implication is that U.S. oil producers need to increase production and will likely need to see higher oil prices. And this is by Russell Clark of Capital Flows and Asset Markets on Zero Hedge. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.